We're here for the TCU Online Power Half Hour for the assignment tool, which also includes Turnitin integration. We have a 30-minute demo here, so I've muted everybody's microphones, but if you will, please hold your questions to the very end, or if you would like, you can type them in the chat window and I'll address them at the end. If there's any technical issues as well, feel free to type them in the chat window and we'll get you all fixed up. So I'm going to show you our assignment tool. This is similar to the Dropbox in eCollege. They just changed the name so that there was no confusion with the actual product called Dropbox.com. It is the same similar function that you're used to, but I feel like it's a bit better, smoother ride with this tool. So to get started, just to tell you a little bit about it, Assignments is a management tool used for student submission of assignments, such as papers. It allows students to submit assignments, such as a Word or PDF document, directly to TCU Online, eliminating the need for a hard copy paper or email version of those papers. During this session, I'm going to show you two different ways to create assignment submission folders. So instead of in eCollege where we called them Dropbox baskets, these are called assignment submission folders. So to get started, I'm going to show you how to create it using the actual assignment tool. And by doing that, I'm in my shell. I go to Activities on the navigation bar, and I select that, and then I just select Assignments. So our first step, you see there's already one in here. We're going to create our new one for our pretend assignment. We go to this big blue button and select New Submission Folder. So this is what you will call your submission folder or your basket. It's very important to name it properly. The naming convention is super important. Make sure that you that your name for the assignment basket or folder matches what you have in the syllabus. We often see where someone has something called paper 1 in their syllabi, and then in eCollege or in your online class, TCU Online, they have reflective paper on such and such title. And so it causes a lot of confusion. So that naming convention is super important. For this, I'm going to keep it really, really simple. I'm going to call it paper 1. You can choose if you want this to be an individual submission folder or a group submission folder. And the disclaimer here is, in order to have access to have a group submission folder, you first have to create groups, which we're happy to share that information with you. But if you use the group submission folder, for example, a final project, and say you have 4 students in a group, one student can submit the final product that they create, a Word document or PowerPoint or whatever it is, and you will be able to grade that one item and push the grade across to all of them and adjust the grades if you need to. So that's really fantastic. For this example, we're going to keep it simple and keep it as a normal individual submission folder. The next section has to do with grading. If you want to put this in a specific category in the gradebooks, if you had like a papers category, you could create that. For this example, I'm going to leave it as no category. You can also associate it with a grade item if you already had one set up in the gradebook. Otherwise, you can create a new one. I'm going to go ahead and do that and just call it paper 1, and we'll say it's 100 points possible. I'm not going to do any crazy settings because gradebook is a whole separate discussion, but this is just the bare bones minimum. We're naming it in the gradebook, the same thing, paper 1, and we have point value of 100 points. We again put that their score can be out of 100. If we wanted, we can add a rubric to this, or we can create one. We can choose a rubric if we, had one already created, and we can give our instructions. So this is where you would say, the guidelines for the assignment. So I'm just going to keep it simple and say instructions for assignment, go here. just as an example for you. You can allow students to send their submission to ePortfolio if you wanted. That's a default. You can also attach a file. So if you wanted to give a little bit more information and record a video introduction of this is your expectation, or this, this is what they need to know about it, you can do that. Record audio, add a file. If you had a document that they needed to review to reflect on, you can have that attached as well. You have submission options, and this is where you can choose if you want them to unlimited be able to add files to this folder or only one. You can have where all submissions are kept, or only the most recent, or only one. So again, it's up to you as to how detailed you want to get and how crucial that is for the actual assessment of the assignment. Just because I'm a little OCD, I'm going to go ahead and click Save just to make sure I don't lose anything before I move on to these other tabs. So the next tab is the Restrictions tab. This is where you would set your start and due date and end date. You can choose, these are really important. This will show up in the calendar for the course. It will also connect with other apps that students might use, such as the Pulse app, and remind them that, hey, you need to turn in paper 1. It's due on this date. So just for example, I'm going to say, this starts today, and it auto fills in the time. I'm in Eastern time zone, so that's why it says noon already. We'll say this has a due date of the 18th at 5 p.m. And we can say the end date is also the same time. I'll just copy that over. You can also create release conditions. We'll talk more in depth in this in open labs and in other workshops. However, just to give you a preview, you can have this available to only students who have reviewed a certain document or content item in your course, or if they have submitted something to posted to the discussion, they would be able to see this, or if they've earned a certain grade, they can do it. So you can have it sort of as a path, a gating setup, so that they don't see this unless they do XYZ, or unless they've earned such and such score. So that's available to you. Special access is really, really great. This is something that is embedded in with several tools, such as the quiz tool and the assignments tool, where you can have students have special access. And this would be for accommodations, or if you have graduate and undergraduates, or, some kind of special situation where a student may have been ill and you need to give them extra access, you can go and add users to this, and you set their own start and end dates and due dates, and you would just select which student and add in that access for them. So super cool. We're really excited about this. So just a clarification here for this: any student that you add to that page with the special access would be able to submit files outside of the normal availability for this assignment. And you can also set it up so only those who have that special access can even see the folder. So that would be, a special case, such as graduate or undergraduate sort of thing. The next tab over is the Objectives tab. We are going more in depth in this in other workshops. However, you can associate learning objectives to specific items in your course, such as an assignment. Turnitin. We have Turnitin as a standalone product currently, and we also have it integrated with our eCollege platform, and we have it integrated in our new platform here, TCU Online. It's super easy to enable. It's simply you check the box, and before I go into detail, I want to tell you, if you haven't used this before, Turnitin is a plagiarism detection solution, and it is integrated in each submission folder if you choose, and can be enabled for those submission folders to review student work to see if there are matches against other papers, periodicals, journals, websites, you name it, it could probably check against it. So to actually enable this, you check the box. It does a little action in the behind the scenes. And, if you're ever in a product and it has more options, always click it because there are great things behind the scenes. So in this example, I'm going to click more options and turn it in. And what this does is it actually is doing a handshake behind the scenes to allow me into Turnitin.com. You see up here, it is connecting to that product. So you'll see that the title and instructions and max grade, start, end date, due date, those are all locked down because I just set them up over on this restrictions tab. So we highly, highly recommend that you always set up the submission folder restrictions first, and then it will carry over into this page with Turnitin. It can cause a few hiccups if you don't do the restrictions first and then you go to this page. It gets a little confused. So there's optional settings within this window. I'm going to select this, and this may look familiar to you if you have used Turnitin previously with eCollege or with the standalone product. You have a bunch of options here. So do you allow late submissions? Yes or no? What do you want it to compare against? Other student papers, web content, periodicals, journals, publications. This one is really important. Generate reports immediately. Or do you want them to be able to resubmit until the due date? Or should it only produce those reports on the due date? We typically recommend in our department that you generate the reports immediately and you allow them to resubmit. That way the students can learn from it and say, oh my gosh, I totally didn't cite this, or they're going to know that I didn't do this well. So we definitely recommend that, especially if you have a draft type situation or if you want to allow them to learn from this, to set it up with the second option. These next several options are to exclude content, and what this will do is it will exclude bibliographic material, quotes, and small matches. We actually recommend that you do not exclude anything so that you can see how it works. You can always toggle these on later if you choose, but we recommend that you start out as not excluding anything. The next one is to allow students to view originality reports. We definitely recommend that you change this to yes, and it actually looks like it is not letting me do that. Oh, okay, so it's not letting me change it here because I haven't yet checked the box over here on this other page, so we'll address that one in just a moment. The next one is, do you want their paper to be sent to the student repository? So this would be important if you have a draft assignment where you want the students to send a part of their paper to you now, and then they'll expand upon it in later assignments. You would not want it to be stored in that repository. Otherwise, it would say that they would plagiarize themselves later. But if it is a final paper, then absolutely, you may want it to go to that repository. We have a page on our website that we will be updating to make it relate to TC Online that will have all of these suggested settings so that you can use that as a cheat guide later. We have these other options that are embedded in the Turnitin Feedback Studio that we can discuss more in depth at a later time, but you can attach rubrics within the Feedback Studio. You can enable grammar checking, and you can also do peer mark, where you can allow students to review their peer papers. And there's also a way for faculty to mark up using grade mark in this. Again, it's a kind of larger explanation than what we have time for today, but these are available to you. The last thing that I would recommend is if you're setting these up and these are your standard options, I would definitely suggest checking yes so that these save for future assignments. So now we're going to go back over here and make sure that we check this box. And what this is that it will allow your students to see their originality similarity scores. So, if you want them to learn from it and say, oh, I got 10%, that's good. Or, they know that I plagiarized all of this. It's a good way to communicate with your students and use it as a teaching tool. You have the option to set frequency, so you can have it automatically check submissions, or you can spot check and just identify specific papers that you want to run through the Turnitin originality checking tool. I mentioned earlier that we have this grade mark tool. This is possible for this makes it available for you to mark up papers, add comments, and also use some of their pre-set up comments and things like that that you can add into your assignments for feedback purposes. So that is available too, and you can have it available. You can set the time and date that shows up for your students. It defaults at the date that it was due that you set up on that restrictions tab. So we have gone through each of these tabs. Just a quick refresh. We set up our properties. What is the assignment? Is it an individual? What do they have to do? We set restrictions. If we want, we can do objectives, and then we can enable Turnitin. I am going to save and close on this. And now we're going to look at this again from, we'll pretend that we just got into this course and we go to our assignments tool. And now we have this set up here. So it is available, which is why there's a little icon here, and it is something that will be assessed with the gradebook, which is why it has the little assessment ruler. It will tell us how many files are submitted, how many are unread, and how many are flagged. At any time, you can click the little context menu, which is this little down arrow, to view submissions, edit the folder, delete, or see a submission log. We highly recommend that you use extreme caution when you delete anything. However, that is a possibility here. If we wanted to view submissions, I'll show you a course that actually has some setup so that this will make more sense to you. Let's see, before I move on, let me hop over to this other course so that you can see one that actually has some submissions set up. So for example, this argument paper 1 has 8 files. None are unread because we have gone in this course before, but I'm going to go to view submissions. So this page shows me my student names, their assignment. It has a date and time stamp, and I can see if there were multiple submissions, it would show up here. We can see if it was submitted late, which is very nice. It shows up in red. And I'm going to go ahead and select one of these so that you can see what it looks like when you go to grade. So what will happen, which is a huge improvement from our previous platform, is you can view their submission in line on the page. So if it's a Word document, HTML, PDF, it will show up right here in context. This is a document that is our internal coverage document. So we'll pretend this is an amazing submission. I can grade from here. I can see submission folder information. I can see the dates, and I can also see what it's attached to in the gradebook. I can choose what the student would see, add feedback. I can add a file to send back to them, record audio feedback or video feedback, and I can update. So if I realize that I needed to change something, I can update that or retract a previous submission. To go to the next student, I can just click Next Student. Now this is a different one. This is an image that the student submitted. So if I select it, it will then display it for us. And I can go and add feedback and link to things and insert various content to send back to them, or again, record audio or video directly on the page, which is fantastic. I'm going to go back here to the submission folder and show you that there's other ways to contact people. You have email users without submissions, so I can select that. It will automatically pull up those users who did not email anything. I can add feedback files, so if I have specific things I want to send back to the group, I can send that. And I can see a submission log, and this will say who graded or who submitted things, and the time and date stamp, so that you can see all of those instances of interaction with this assignment. You can also go to a Files tab, which will just show you the files, just straight up. It's a little bit cleaner looking, and that's available to you. Okay, so I'm going to hop back over to our Power Half Hour shell and show you that there is another way to add an assignment folder. You saw that when we went through this Activities tab to Assignments, we had a lot of options available to us, including Turn It In and all kinds of things. What you can do is go also to the Content tool, and this will take you to your content. So if you had a bunch of modules set up, you can do two things. So I just set it up in Activities Assignments tool. If I wanted to add that within context with my actual content, I can go to Add Existing Activities and select Assignments. It will bring up my various assignments there and select it. And this will show up now in context. So if a student were to come into this class, I'm going to view as a student here. I can come to the module. Oh no, I have this set up with timestamps on it. Okay, so in theory, if it was set for the correct timing here, I would go in as a student and I would see the instructions right on the page, and I can open that and submit my assignment directly from here. If I wanted to create a new assignment from here rather than going to the assignment tool, I can do create, upload create, new assignment. I'm going to just call this example assignment. It allows me from here to choose if it's individual or group. Again, if you have group, it only shows up if you have groups previously set up in the course. Instructions, go here. This is where you would put your assignment information, and then you just click publish. Now, what we're missing are all of those amazing options that we had earlier. You will see, though, in the bottom of this page that I can add it to a grade item from here. I can add dates and restrictions, so due dates, when it starts and ends, and I have options such as can they submit unlimited, or what is kept, is it all submissions or only the most recent, and so on. But we lose a lot of those amazing options with Turn It In and everything else. So we definitely recommend that you use this avenue of creating them sparingly and go directly to the tool so that you can really set this up in a more robust way. One thing to point out, though, that's really nice is you can access from here the completion summary. So you can see from here if a student has accessed it. Now I'm going to go back to this other course so that you can see if we have any access to these. So I'm going to see if I can find it. Oh, of course, there aren't any in here. But if I had them, I could go and see the activity here. Has anybody gone to this item? Have they viewed it? Have they submitted anything? So it's a nice way to go and see that in a glance. And you can see incomplete or completed items here. Okay, so the last thing that I did not mention yet is that we have, I don't know how many iPad users we have, but we do have an iPad assignment grader app. And when you go to this view submissions tab, there is a link to go and download that. And the way this works is you download the app, you log into your course, and you can grade offline. You can save drafts of your feedback, and when you're ready, you can sync it once you're back on Wi-Fi. So if you are on an airplane, or if you just want to work without distraction, you can turn off your internet and work for a while, and then when you're ready, you would send that back and bring it back into the system. So that was a really, really quick demo of this really robust tool. at this point, I want to open it up for questions, and I'm actually going to start first with Linda. I see she just typed a question. So before I unmute everybody, I'll read this to you. So Linda's question is about the group submission folder. She understands that I say you have to define and set up groups first. So assume only one student needs to submit the assignment to the group folder, and one grade to the group gives the same grade to all individuals. Yes, that's correct. What happens when one or more students do not have the same grade? Maybe their peer evaluations cause it to be lower. How does that work? What would happen is in the grade book, when you say, everybody gets a 92 except Carrie over here, she needs an 82 or whatever. She didn't do XYZ correctly. You can manually go and edit that grade. I'm not sure if I have an example of that available in here, but it would work. It would work just as if you were grading something else, where you would go into the grade book and you would just change that grade, 65 or whatever it is. So it's super easy to update that as needed. I'm going to open up the mics. Are there any other questions? Or Linda, do you have any more questions? Did that answer it? Great. If there are no other questions, then we are all done. I will send an email follow-up to you that will provide a bunch of links so that when you're ready to start digging into your master shells and your live semester shells, you can have information as far as how to get in, how to do all of this, how to set it up, and we have some extra tips that we're including as well, and links to other documentation available to you. Thanks for coming.